A few months ago, I released the Ewan solo run video where he literally broke FE8 solo running records. However, when making that video, I had to go through Ewan's mage line because my belief was that it was the most efficient way to solo the game. I made this decision knowing that a few people would probably be unhappy given that a lot of the community views Ewan as the de facto shaman of this game since your other option is, well, null. Ugh. And also because in the solo run format, he was our only other shaman option. And we had a lot of runs previously using the Sage class with a bunch of different characters. And while the Sage got us some really good results, I didn't want to disappoint too much, so I decided to run the two dark magic classes right here live on my YouTube stream and give you all 2 more Ewan solo runs. But because I'm cognizant that not everyone wants to watch long streams, I am going to be breaking down what happened in that stream in today's video. We'll be taking a look at how Ewan function as both a druid and a summoner in the solo run format and see if he actually does better or if my initial assumption was right and he is better as a sage. One of the things we know about Ewan from the last run is that he will be reliable. No matter the class we pick, I think we can expect reliability out of this character. Since again, he is a unit that hits on res, and that should be pretty easy for this run and make it just a reliable experience from that. And what we're more interested in is knowing if the Dark Mage classes are going to be better or worse than the Sage classes. But on the topic of reliability, I think it's time to present you the sponsor of today's video, ExpressVPN. When making any videos on my channel, it is quite common that often I will try to find a way to work from coffee shops as they allow me to concentrate on my work a little bit better than my home. But that means using public Wi-Fis. And with public Wi-Fi comes the danger of your data floating around and being nabbed by thieves. And in real life, much like in Fire Emblem, it really does suck when thieves steal from you. So thanks to ExpressVPN, I can now stay safe from the pesky data thieves that are out there when working on public Wi-Fis. This is all because ExpressVPN uses encrypted tunnels that keep all my data safe no matter where I decide to work from. So if you're interested in staying safe when connecting to a public network, whether that be like me, a coffee shop, or in an airport, hotel, really wherever you have access to public internet, which nowadays is pretty much everywhere, I highly recommend using ExpressVPN to keep your data safe. And you can find out how to get 4 extra months on any plan by clicking the link in the description below or scanning the QR code on the screen right now. Each purchase of a 1 to 2 year plan through my link directly supports the channel. So check out ExpressVPN and thanks to them for sponsoring this video. Now back to the video. First things first, if you didn't watch the original Ewan video, you should watch it. Since we'll be referring to it a lot in this video, that context might be important and I won't go into all the tiny little details in this run as there will be a lot of similarities between both runs, of course. As you know, it's the same character. The rule set will be the same as the OG one, so Draco Shield Start, hard mode, and all of that stuff. I won't go back over Ewan's bases in every single map, because I'm assuming you've watched that video. And if you haven't, just pause this one and go see the other one and then come back, you know? Thank you. Welcome back. For the most part here, you'll see that the early game stuff will happen just like in the original video. And what we're really interested here is not Ewan as a pupil. We've seen that in the OG video. I think I spent enough time breaking that down in that video. I think it was almost half the video. So since we care more about him as a dark mage, we will skip ahead to that. And specifically to his level 20 shaman stats, because I'll be using the same Ewan for both runs, since once I reach level 20 I'll be doing a second save as to keep both runs as close as possible to one another. Here our Ewan will actually look a little worse than the OG one, being behind like 4 points on magic, but technically even more since the shaman promo gives Ewan 2+ points in magic than the mage class does. So it's not looking great on that front. Our skill though is looking much better, but all other stats for this Ewan seem to be lagging behind somewhat when you consider the original one we had. Here what we have is something more akin to a regular Ewan experience. He looks more close to the average than the other one did, which kind of shows that our blessed Ewan from the first run did a lot of work from that standpoint. But to me, that is the magic of Fire Emblem RNG. Sometimes it goes your way and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes it just just follows what's most likely to happen. It's always kind of a coin toss when you think about it. And that's what makes this series fantastic, in my opinion, because no matter how you run a game, it's never going to be the same experience as somebody else is going to have. And it creates all sorts of different feel and experiences across the board. But all in all, this will be enough for now in terms of stats. He looks good enough. Like, I'm ragging on him for being behind, but realistically, this is better than a lot of units have done in the past. One of the main things that will slow down this run will be the animations of the shaman class, which are a little slower than you'll typically see from the mage class. And the same thing applies to the promoted classes, where in our first promotion, we will take the druid class. We'll do the summoner class a little later in the video, don't worry. But you'll see a few things happening here that are quite significant. First of all, the druid run won't go that much differently than the sage one did, since you'll see me try to S-rank anima magic, because whatever way you cut it, Excalibur is simply the best S-rank magic tome, with the extra speed it warrants, and because it has super effective damage against the Demon King, which Gleipnir, the S-rank dark tome, doesn't have. But if you're disappointed in that, don't worry. When we do the summoner, we simply won't have much of a choice, as that class only gets a single type of magic available to it, and you've guessed it, it's dark magic. But once that S ranking is done, I'll focus mostly on Flux, as it has a higher base damage than fire, and since my magic stat is a little lower, that extra might is welcome. But it still won't be enough to keep up with the pace that OG Ewan was putting in these mid-game maps, and I'll use chapters 10 as an example of that. If you remember the Ewan video, on this map, Ewan would one-tap enemies with Thunder, which has a base might of 8, which is a single point higher than Flux. But here you can see that with Flux, we have to do 2 attacks to kill the enemies. On this map, even if I switch to Thunder, it still wouldn't be enough to kill with a single hit, which in turn procs 2 full animations of the attack, making it way longer than what happened on the Sage run. And this may be one of the few explanations as to why Ewan did his original run as a Sage much faster. He had the ability to skip all those extra animation through the mid game, which might not seem like a lot, but these few seconds over like 5 to 6 maps tend to start adding up in the long run, especially since this is like always on 3 times speed. So like the few seconds you're seeing here are actually kind of longer technically, and this druid version of Ewan won't be able to do that at all. And on top of that, the animations are slightly longer. But outside of that, the ease of the run will be quite similar overall, with really no major differences in terms of like map difficulties. They will remain like the same. There's no map that this one struggles on a lot in the mid game section or early game section. It just really is a question of one seems a little bit faster than the other at, you know, a baseline eye test level. We'll see later what the timer tells us, but just from what my eyes can see right now, this just only difference is just speed of completion. But in terms of overall difficulty of completion, it's a unit that hits on res in the mid game that's over leveled. It's just going to destroy all its competition, whether the enemy likes that or not. So I won't dilly-dally on the details, since you've already seen some of those details in the other video, presumably. So we'll move on to chapter 15 already, as there'll be some slight changes here. The main one being that I pick up Eclipse from the desert on top of the boots, the Metis Tome, the body ring, which I did all in the original video. While I did S-rank Anima Magic, as I previously stated, the potential of Eclipse here can be major, given that if it hits, it will half the enemy HP no matter what they are. So the Demon King and Leon both get affected equally than any other units. So that's pretty massive, and meaning we won't really need a crit like we did last time. Not that I think last time we needed a crit, we got super lucky, but here it's, you know, it still adds a little bit of consistency to the whole mix. Ewan will also reach level 20, so while some of the few maps going forward play behind us, let's take a look at this new Ewan compared to the old one. And wow, I just have to say wow here. You may have noticed that Druid Ewan has been catching up in terms of performance, and when compared to our previous Ewan, well, now he's looking better somehow. The growths have just been in our favor here on this promoted Ewan for some reason. But yeah, maxed out magic, skill, speed, and luck with the same defense and resistance stats as the previous one, with an even better HP stat of 51, which means that with his final angelic robe, he will have that almost maxed out. So he's looking quite formidable here. I have no words. He caught up, and you know, I think the luck of the draw just makes it that, I don't know, maybe Ewan's growths are better than I thought, but he just always is looking really good for me in these solo runs. So great. As we head into the back half of the game, this is somewhat reassuring. On chapter 17, I'll take a minute to go to the shop on the map directly, as it is the only way to buy the Nosferatu tome, which allows you to heal from stealing HP from your target and can be extremely valuable in the late game when having access to dark magic, as it makes it that you don't always need to use your healing item to heal. So I'll make sure I stock up for the upcoming maps. Unfortunately, you can't seem to get it from any overworld shop, so you really just have to do it here and do a quick detour, which slows down the map slightly, but I think it's worth it in the end. Here we'll take a quick look at chapter 18 and how it's going to go, because if you remember last time, it was a breeze given the access to light magic and Ewan's crazy dodge. Here we'll have the chance of having similar stats, but let's see how all this goes without the weapon triangle advantage. And you'll see here that once again, having maxed out luck and speed makes the dodge rate of any unit quite formidable. And here, despite having to rely on dark magic to not get penalized by the weapon triangle advantage, the general hit rates of Gorgons is in the 20s, and the hit rate of Stone will be very low at 7%. So while not as good as our earlier Ewan, it's still good. It will make this map a little longer due to have to be slightly more careful, as you can see, using Luna on the boss to make sure they die before being able to retaliate, and stuff like that will come into play because they'll have a better hit rate. But all in all, we'll still first try this map. We'll get through it like very decisively, and it won't be much of an issue for Ewan. Even without access to light magic, it doesn't seem that it was necessary here because the stats are just really good. All right, I'll skip ahead to the final map because so far this run has been more of the same of what we've already seen, and we know that Morva on the previous chapter isn't a huge factor, and we'll clean him up with Excalibur. The final map is where we're really going to see the differences between Druid Ewan, since he'll be able to flex his dark magic muscles as things like Nosferatu and the previously mentioned Eclipse start to matter finally. So as we always do here, I'll grab the angelic robe from the right chest and then head to the left side zombie dragon, since the reinforcement when you take the left path are the magic eyes, and Ewan has better resistance than defense and can take those on easily. Excalibur will once again kill a zombie dragon in one round of combat. After the reinforcement, you'll see me use Eclipse on Leon once to drop him to half HP, as we have a 77% chance to hit, so why not take that? Then we'll take the left path to fight through the evil doggos and fully heal up using Nosferatu. As you can see here, it's a fantastic tome, Nos tanking, doing some good work on the final map, and saves us from using elixirs. And then once the first Gorgon is out of the way, I can simply walk my butt to Leon, pull out Luna, which ignores resistance, and just say, bye-bye, Leon, and move on to the Demon King with ease. All right, so we'll begin by backing up Ephraim, then we move up with Ewan. Check out Excalibur, 24 times 2, 7% chance to crit. Why not take it? He has 46% chance to hit us. We hit our first one, of course, we can't miss. And then he does hit us and no crit, so you won't be able to rely on crit Ewan this time around. No problem, the enemies spawn. It's a little bit of an annoying spread. You see me look at it. Luna 2, 29, 58% chance to hit is way lower. Now I think backing up and using Nosferatu to heal up on enemy phase is going to be the appropriate play overall. So here you see that I don't use Nosferatu right away. I actually just back up and Pure Water and keep Excalibur equipped. Thinking the speed is going to be enough to keep me alive, and then I can Nosferatu on the following units. I still also have 3 elixirs left since I haven't used any of them. So let's see how this enemy phase goes. And as you can see, the speed here that I have, the extra speed from Excalibur makes it that a lot of these units have pretty low hit rate on me. So that's not going to be that much of an issue. And here on the last few enemies, you'll see that I finally pull out Nosferatu a little later than maybe I should have. But no matter what, I get to fully heal up off of the Demon King's minions, and once they are all dead, we will go back to seeing what we can do to him. Remember, we still have Eclipse, Luna, and Excalibur left. And here Eclipse is a 38% chance to hit. We go for it, we miss. We're hoping for like maybe one of those to hit. I'm not frankly very hopeful that we're gonna hit more than one, and even if we can hit one, we missed the second one here too. The Demon King is not letting up without a fight. Also, Ephraim has been dodging all these shadow shots, which very lucky enough doesn't really happen that often when you think about it. I think the Evil Eye is now out of it. Another Eclipse attack, and we hit. Okay, he's down to 36 HP. This is kind of what we wanted, and this is why Eclipse is so good. Here we can just don't even need the last Eclipse. We just go in with Excalibur and we two-shot him and end him right away. See, it wasn't that hard. It actually was a little bit more consistent when you think about it with the Druid, because you wouldn't have had the option of a long-range tome with the Sage. Yes, you had Purge, but Purge doesn't damage the Demon King since it's not super effective like it would be on the Bishop class, since it doesn't have Slayer skill attached to it or super effective damage on the Demon King inherently. So if I didn't get that crit or a dodge with the original Ewan, it would have been a little bit more delicate, since you can't tank 2 attacks from the Demon King, so you have to attack him when you're always full health. Required a lot of uses of vulnerary and hopefully some dodges. So technically you can say it's slightly more consistent with the Druid. And as some of the footage from the run we did as a summoner runs in the back, let's talk about this results here. And the run itself, bar some minor things, didn't really go that differently, as I've already said. The only big thing is in the final map with Eclipse and Nosferatu. The light and dark distinction doesn't really do much in terms of secondary magic type most of the time. Both of them get long range options for the final map that come in handy at different times, of course. Dark mages get some extra nifty tools in the form of Nosferatu and Luna that can help. And on the other side, Sage get the light magic, which really Purge takes out Leon pretty much on its own, and light magic allows the Gorgon map to be a non-factor, really. But honestly, I'd say that the difficulty level was about the same, showing that the stats matter a lot more than anything else in these runs. There's a few minor little things here and there you can see, but the result will be showing a very different story with a final time of 8 hours and 30 minutes and the final turn count of 362, which in both cases is slower than the Sage run Ewan, despite both of them being somewhat blessed in growth. While that came earlier in the run for Sage Ewan, the Druid version did end up catching up, but there are some discrepancies in time and turns nonetheless. In terms of time, it's quite hard to say overall because this run was done live, unlike my other one. So there may have been, and there probably was, some time wasted on that front. While chatting and moving around and not always being like laser focused, it may have caught some time. But to be fair to myself, I did make sure to pause the emulator whenever I wasn't actively playing the game in order to not cause too big of an impact on the time. But it did still have somewhat of an impact. Let's face it, we can't really hide from that. But I doubt that it came down to almost a full 2 hours. I think saying that the 2 hour plus of time being fully due to live stream differences would be a little bit pushing it, if you ask me. So here my main guess is that the animations were much slower, contributing to a substantial time loss, but also the mid game where Sage Ewan was one-shotting enemies, making the fighting time much slower, was probably also somewhat of an impact on the run. All right, that is it for Druid Ewan. Now onto the interesting part of the video, at least I think for me, that being the Summoner run, because this one will function somewhat differently. I have to rely fully on dark magic and maybe summons, maybe, but we'll talk about it in like a second. Another reason why this might be the most interesting part of the video is because if you watch the stream, at the end of the stream during chapter 18, the stream crashed. And that wasn't my first stream crash of the day for this run. I had lots of issues with OBS, so I had to call it early and finish the run off stream because I was kind of tired of crashing and resetting. It was getting a little bit on my nerve, which means that the final result of how all this went down is actually still a mystery. So let's get into it, shall we, and reveal how this all went. So the bones of this run won't be massively different for the early parts, but as some of it plays in the background, let's touch on a few elements that will affect this run. The first thing is that maybe I'm crazy, but from watching this back, the run, I feel like Druid animations are slightly slower than the Summoner animations. So I feel like that might have an overall impact on the time, but that might just be me. Somebody can confirm in the comments if you know. The main thing we'll actually lack of seeing here, and you'll notice, and you'll comment on this probably in the comments, Summoner fans never miss bringing it up when you don't use summons the way they like, and it's something that came up a lot in the comments of my null video, and it's the fact that I don't use summons enough. And this might be a controversial opinion, but I think that the general Fire Emblem community overvalues summons like a lot. And I'm saying this in general, not just in a solo run context. Maybe I should make a video about that topic in more detail, but here I'll just talk about it within the solo run context. The idea of having an extra unit to help out seems good on paper. but it actually more often than not just slows you down in this type of run. The summons don't tend to be very bulky and aren't terribly good at dodging, which means that on enemy phase, they might end up taking out 1 or maybe if you're lucky 2 units before dying, and just taking up time for me to both summon, and it slows down enemies from moving towards you, who will in 99.9999999% of cases do a better job at enemy phasing the enemies than the phantoms. There are rare cases when phantoms come in useful, such as chapter 12, where there are enemies in the mountains that take time to move towards us. So here phantoms who can fly over the mountains can be useful as they reach those units and help out in clearing the map slightly faster, as I don't have to wait around for those enemies. In some cases like this, it can be good. In other route maps too, where it theoretically allows me to split my forces to kill more enemy units on different parts of the map at once, that sounds pretty good, but in practice, this barely comes into play, given that unless the enemies are lance unit, a lot of phantoms simply won't dodge much and get cleared quite often very quickly. So using a turn to summon instead of just fighting or simply waiting just isn't worth it in 90% of cases, as these summons will more often than not just die within a couple of hits, and a unit Ewan could have simply taken out on enemy phase will remain alive. Anyways, feel free to disagree with me, but in the solo run context, few are the instances where summons do come in handy. And when they do, I'll point it out, but expecting them to carry the solo run or even put in a decent amount of work is a clear over-evaluation of this ability, at least in this context of play. And even when looking at a chapter like chapter 15, which could be a good map on paper for summons, given that there are many side objectives such as saving Ephraim, 2 bosses to kill, very low movement overall, the phantoms should come in really handy. But in this case, they are, in my opinion, quite useless. Speaking of useless, let's look at Null dying and quickly give him a quick bye-bye Null, and then look at a phantom dying and give him a quick bye-bye phantom. To one of the wyverns, you'll see exactly what I mean here. It doesn't even double the first one and dies on the second one. This kind of constant cycle can work in the long run if you want to take like 100 turns to beat a map, but it's just way slower than simply putting Ewan in the middle of enemies on a fort and clicking end turn. You'd have to cycle through the perfect phantoms to even do anything, and those tend to be the one with like a devil axe or a killer axe, which you can summon, but you just gotta get lucky to summon the right one, and then you gotta just waste a bunch of time summoning over and over again to get the right ones, which is, yes, a strategy that works on paper, but it's not fast. It is consistent, I'll give you that, but it's not quick or good in my opinion. But hey, I've done over 25 of these solo runs, and I still have people argue that I'm doing them wrong in the comments when people have never done even one of those. So either way, it doesn't really matter. Whatever I say, somebody's going to come in the comments and tell me I'm an idiot for not liking phantoms. It is what it is. But on the topic of chapter 15, we'll once again pick up the usual suspect of boots and the body ring. And this time again, we'll grab the Eclipse Tome, as Ewan might need a little help against the Demon King later on. While some other map plays in the background, let's quickly look at this level 20 summoner Ewan. And already off the bat, less green, so less impressive. My brain is simple. Less green, you're less good, you know? I think all Fire Emblem players work the same when it comes to stats. But just from a base standpoint, the summoner does have worse caps than the Druid does. But here the main issue is 22 speed, which is relatively low, but nonetheless should be enough. But it will affect Ewan's dodge rate in general. On the opposite of that, 18 defense is really good and just helps his survivability in other cases. This Ewan still doesn't have the last talisman, so we're looking at most likely capping resistance too. With all that being said, is this Ewan bad? No. Actually, it's still quite decent overall. So while it doesn't look as good as the other ones we've seen so far, growths tend to favor him in most contexts, it seems. Even a average to more average looking Ewan still looks amazing. At least in 3 run, it hasn't missed for me. It's a very small sample size, I know, but it's the one we have here to evaluate. So much like the Druid on chapter 17, I'll make the Nosferatu detour before beating the map and moving on to chapter 18, which is where the stream died. So this is where some of you in this video have no knowledge of what's going to happen forward. Let's take a look at these Gorgons and how Ewan number 3, I guess, handles them. Well, despite losing a little bit of speed, high 20s for hit rate is quite good, and Ewan won't struggle much here, showing that you'd really need a very stat screwed Ewan to even make this map hard. When it comes to the boss, this is one of the instances where summons will come in handy, as I get to bait the boss Gorgon in towards Ewan without having to dodge 2 of their stone attacks. I only have to dodge the one on the counter attack when I attack with Luna. Odds are that Ewan could have handled the 2, but this is an instance where summons bring in some safety and consistency to the run without costing a lot of time. It's very rare, but it does happen. On this map, they can also be used early, the summons that is, to go kill some eggs out of the way, which slightly speeds things up too. But overall, this map won't cause any concerns after all. Stone Gorgons have like a 16% hit rate, which is still pretty low, but we could always get unlucky. So got to keep that in mind. But again, we won't this time, but the odds are worse than in any of the other runs. Chapter 19 will be a quick rush. As per usual, phantoms don't provide much here given that they can't be summoned on Fog of War tiles. We will then move on to chapter 20, which like in the OG Ewan run won't be too much of an issue. Again, these monster units are a huge problem since they kind of suck. There is a lot of them in general. I'll use Luna on Morva and beat him with a crit, and here on the reinforcements you can see that there's always a risk. If one of those low hit rate gets me after the Morva attack, it can lead to a game over if you're really unlucky. So again, another situation where the odds are slightly worse for us, but it doesn't come and bite us here. All right, final map time for Summoner Ewan. Here we go right for the Angelic Robe, and then we go left for the Evil Eye. The playbook is quite simple. It's the same we've done so far. Here, I'll use a different strategy for the Zombie Dragon, though, since technically with the summons, you can ignore him and not have to fight him with Luna, which is quite inaccurate in this game. So there's odds that like you don't do great against him using Luna. So you can use the summons to just purely ignore him and move him out of the way, so the left path becomes clear and you don't have to fight him. Here, I do a little bit of that. I do it in like the most scuff way because I've never really done this strategy overall. And you can see I move him in the middle of the map. It allows me that lane where I don't have to fight him because he'll only attack if you're in range of him. So the summons do come in slightly handy here, but I still think it would have been probably faster to use Nosferatu and Nos tank him, then bait him around and spawn the 2 side of the reinforcements. This is technically safer and more consistent, but to all those who propose the strategy in my null video, it is, as all things that demand the use of summons in solo run, simply slower. Then we move on to Leon, who we will hit with an Eclipse from range, first to half health him, and then I walk forward and kill him with Glepnir, which I had to use at least once in this video, right? Even though it's quite awful because of its weight, it still doubles Leon, weirdly enough, because his tome is also awful. It packs 8 punch, and the animation is simply sick. Probably one of the best. All right, time for the Demon King. We'll walk up to him, and here the first thing I'll do is I have to pick out the right items, so I'll be putting a few of these useless tomes in the convoy here. Nosferatu shouldn't do much. Luna 26. Glepnir does 8, but I get doubled by 31 and just die. And Nosferatu does 0. So we got to go for the 67% chance to hit. Luna with 7% chance to crit, and he has 64% chance to hit us. We hit him on the first hit, and does he hit us? We dodge. Ooh, that's actually kind of huge. That's a good start. Okay, so here the reinforcements will come through. We'll have to move out of the way, and we'll probably equip on Nos here just to Nos tank the enemies. Here I'll pick out a fresh Nos and start by killing the Evil Eye so that Ephraim stays relatively safe, because they do like to attack Ephraim when he's there. All right, here you'll see after the first kind of round of reinforcement, you'll see that I heavily back up. And I will be using summons here. This is another instance where summons are useful for survivability and consistency. The Gorgon is a problem. Just generally speaking, the Gorgon is a problem for Ewan because it will use stone on you. And you do not want it to use stone on you because stone is going to have a pretty good hit rate generally. These Gorgons are much better than the Gorgons you're used to in Chapter 18. They tend to just pack kind of a bigger punch. So here we'll use the summons, stay far away from it so that it never gets an opportunity to attack Ewan. But here using the, again, summons, we can chip down its HP from far away so that we don't ever have to worry about it. So that's going to be what I'm going to do here as I kind of do ring around the rosy with Nosferatu to take out the other reinforcements, which don't scare Ewan too much, luckily enough for me. But here you'll see me use summons. Once again, one of the rare use cases where they are useful against our friends, the Gorgons. And here you'll see that the summon misses, but with Ewan we can go forward and use Nosferatu and kill it because it was already half health by another summon. So that makes that easier. And again, we haven't lost a single shred of HP because we keep, by the way, we got hit by an 18% here, which is insane. But no HP was lost, and now we can move on to Eclipse, which, by the way, higher hit rate, 47% this time, and we hit the first one. Okay, that's actually really good. Let's go for number 2. 47%, 24 damage this time around. We hit the second one. Okay, another, perhaps? Another. We missed this one. Okay, so we got 2, and we still have 1 use left. Let's go for it. I gotta doubt this is gonna hit. You know, 50% chance about, and it does hit. Okay, we've hit 3 of the Eclipse on the Demon King. This is pretty much in the bag. Luna's a low hit, 26. Nosferatu does nothing. Gleipnir, 8 damage. No. Okay, now we actually gotta pray a little bit here. Here you'll see that I don't know. I summon because I'm confused. I think I waste a turn here. I shouldn't have summoned. I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? So I just kind of spawn a summon here, and I don't really know. Just trying to bait him in. I don't know. I was confused. I'm like, yeah, you know what? You just gotta go for the Luna. You can't slow this down. This is your best shot. You gotta hit a 67%. It's 2R, and the odds are in your favor. Go for it, and we get a crit to finish it off in style. Go Ewan as a summoner. As you can see, this Demon King fight was way less of a given than any of the other fights. It was a little bit more screwy, I would say, but it was still doable. And honestly, not too bad. We got some luck on the Demon King fight, as I said, but none of those hit rates were awful. Definitely a worse run than the 2 previous one, at least from the standard of the Demon King fight. But if I would have to rank them, I would say Sage Ewan first, Druid Ewan second, and Summoner Ewan third. Definitely worse is the Summoner one because, again, it's all down to the anima magic just being so freaking strong. And when looking at the final time and turns of the Summoner, you have 8 hours and 38 minutes, which is not too far from the Druid, and a final turn count of 380. So not much worse than the Druid again, mind you. But here you can see the extra turns being sucked up by using phantoms at the end and simply trying to rely on them making the run slower. And you may have also noticed that in none of the runs I used elixir until the final map. Well, actually, I didn't really use any elixirs, but you know, that's the only time I brought them in. So in all timelines, Ewan doesn't really need healing until the final map. Stayed on vulneraries the entire time. Probably goes to show that he deserves that top spot. You can run him in 3 different ways, and he scoffs at the enemy most of the time. Either way, I think this answers the question for you all that want to know more about the dark magic classes for Ewan. And for those who watched the stream and never got the final conclusion, here it is. Druid and Summoners are inferior to Sage for solo running, as I had guessed in the original video. But there are a few differences that made this quite interesting if you ask me, and I'd like to thank you all for watching this video. Hit the like button, but most importantly, if you wish to support the channel on another level, click the join button below and check out all the tiers. You can get these videos a few days early and other cool perks, so check that out and help your boy out. On that topic, a huge shout out to all my YouTube members and Twitch subs, but a special shout out goes to my tier 2 and 3 members here on YouTube. Those being Brawler456, Forgotten Fox, Hirame, Case, The Wolfman, Storm Eagle CH, Stylish, A Grumpy Bear, Reploid, El Bunker, Faith Kiera, and Santo Show. Thank you all for the extra support. And thank you once again all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Have a good one. Stay safe out there, and bye-bye.